joining us. If you wouldn't mind clicking on the chat conversation icon box on your screen and go ahead and type in your full name and your email address. That way we can get you on the roster for CEUs. This will be our official roster for today's presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and read a brief pre-activity disclosure. The University of Kansas Health System is accredited as a provider of nursing continuing professional development by the American Nurses Credentialing Centers Commission on Accreditation. To be awarded contact hours, you must attend this program in its entirety and complete the program evaluation. The evaluation link will be emailed to you within 2 weeks. Upon completion of the evaluation, you will receive an email with your CE certificate. If you do not complete the evaluation within 3 weeks from the day of the email, your CE certificate will be unobtainable. Please follow the instructions in your email. So we will now go ahead and hand things over to Heidi.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us. This is, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this is our final presentation to empower everyone, empower mental health through education. So we are so excited to have our speakers here. So Sharon Taylor will be the moderator for today's program, the NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and our own voice presentation today. In Our Own Voice is a unique public education program in which two trained speakers share their compelling personal stories about living with mental illness and achieving recovery. Sharon works as a process owner too in the HITS department and will be celebrating her 30-year anniversary with the health system next week. That's so awesome. She reached out to NAMI to help her learn to communicate with her youngest daughter, who at the time was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and found so much value in the education, support, and advocacy that she experienced. In addition to serving as the president of NAMI Johnson County, she is a trained NAMI Family Support Group facilitator and is a trainer for the NAMI Kansas Advocacy Program, NAMI Smarts for Advocacy. So welcome, Sharon. We're so excited to have you here today, along with Shelley and Matthew.
Well, thank you so much. We're so happy to be a part of your May Mental Health Awareness Month activity. So we're very happy about that. So for some of you who don't know about NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, it's a grassroots organization. We are the largest grassroots mental health organization in the country. And we have over 700 state and affiliate organizations. When we do trainings, it's consistent across all of those affiliates and states. So Shelley and Matthew, when they give their part of the presentation here, they went through a similar program to learn how to give their presentations, tell their stories as every other In Our Own Voice speaker in NAMI across the country. So that consistency is really important to us. I want to point out that 1 in 5 individuals live with a mental health condition. So it could be any of us on this call or our friends or loved ones. So it's so widespread that having opportunities to share our story, talk about the benefits of the National Alliance on Mental Illness is so important to us. So Shelley and Matthew are going to share their story, and I'm just going to give you just a little snippet of mine before we move into their excellent stories. I'm so you'll really enjoy hearing from them and how they've learned to adapt with what they've been given in the way of mental health diagnosis. So I have 5 daughters, and my youngest daughter, who just turned 28 this week, started experiencing some mental health issues when she was about 17. Well, when you have daughters and you have hormonal changes that come along with teenage girls, I thought a lot of her issues were related to, adolescence and, tough things that happened with peers. She was very involved in sports and ROTC program. She had it all figured out. She had a map for her future. Things were good. They were good until they weren't good. And the middle of her junior year of high school, she attempted suicide. So what I thought was, we were taking her to a therapist. We thought we were doing the right things, but it wasn't quite enough. I wish I knew then what I knew now, because the approach would have been totally different. So it was a rough couple of years. She tried to go to college after high school graduation. She attended for a year and a half, and then that those of you who have sent kids away to school and you take them back after the winter break, and she was sitting in our kitchen and she looked at me and she said, "Well, I'm not going back." My husband came downstairs. "What's going on?" "Well, we're not going back." So she had so much anxiety. Uh, uh, she couldn't even enter a lecture hall. And she had been letting us think everything was pretty good. First year was pretty uneventful at college, but going into that second year, she just got overwhelmed. And if she were here today, she could tell you the day she got her bipolar diagnosis, because it helped her know, oh, at least there's a name to what I've been feeling. So she was at K-State when she got that diagnosis. Um, mental mental illness is a lifelong journey. She's had some really bumpy roads on her path to recovery. And during a really rough patch, a little over 2 years ago, she got a second diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. And she was actually a patient in our Strawberry Hill facility where she had excellent care, and that's where she got her second diagnosis. And so I'm free to tell you this about her because really her story is my story. I don't live with mental health conditions, but I've had to change my life to help her. And she'll turn 28, so we're 11 years in to this lifelong journey for her. She's compliant with her therapy, with her medication, all of the things that she needs to do. So I consider her to be in recovery, but what looks like recovery today could be a real challenge. It could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be 5 years from now. So NAMI is so important to me because it helped me learn how to navigate some of those things with her. And there's also programs that help individuals like her. So enough about my story with my daughter. I want to turn it over to Shelley and Matthew. They have really compelling stories, and so we will turn it over to them. Matthew, I think we're starting with you.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Matthew. I'm a gazette enthusiast, bookworm, and I drink Dr. Pepper every day. My mother is a doctor, and she graduated from KU School of Medicine back in 1991. My earliest memories are in the Ivory Coast in West Africa. I love elephants and prehistoric animals. I'm a history buff and geek for mythology and folklore. My favorite Pokemon is Charmander. My go-to Nintendo character is Bowser. On fun and festive occasions, I wear a Dracula cape, and I believe there is no such thing as being too old to watch Winnie the Pooh. Now I'd like to turn over to my co-presenter to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Matthew. Hi, my name is Shelley Janae Sharp. I enjoy reading, listening to music, and watching documentaries. I'm a newlywed at 55 years young. My husband Kirk and I were married on November 11th of 2023. I'm a mother of 8 children. I have 4 biological children, and I'm the bonus mom of my husband's 4 children. 7 of our 8 children are adults, so we're a modern day Brady Bunch. 25 years ago have passed since I began my mental health journey. Prior to 1999, I had no awareness of mental health experiences because of the lack of dialogue in my family and in my community. Since then, I have spent the past 25 years being an advocate of hope for my family, my friends, and my community. My mental health journey is threefold. I have my personal mental health story. I have been and I am a caregiver of family members with mental health stories, and I'm a suicide survivor. My brother died by suicide in 2014. I believe that my threefold mental health story is an example of overcoming and hopefulness. Our purpose today is to offer insights that provide support in the roles that matter to us all, to be better siblings, co-workers, neighbors, service providers, parents, spouses, and friends. Mental health conditions in our lives or in someone we care about can impact those roles. The stories you'll hear today describe how mental health affects people and their relationship with others. We'll share how mental health has impacted our lives, explore warning signs, and describe the kinds of habits and changes support our mental health. After the presentation, we'd appreciate it if you fill out an evaluation form to give us feedback. With that introduction, let's get started.
Growing up, I had to press down on all the bubbles on my cup lid from McDonald's. If I could not watch every TV show episode in chronological order of release, I would refuse to watch. I would get super annoyed if anyone referred to a flying pterosaur, marine reptile, or mammal-like reptile as a dinosaur. Um, I had a speech impediment that made it difficult to get my point across, and I felt that no one could truly understand me. When I was in ninth grade, I had strife with a family member who was undiagnosed. They and I got into a feud. I had no idea that they were bipolar. I thought they were just being a jerk. I became an extremely bitter person. I would replay my hurts over and over. I had a temper that could erupt at any moment, and I said things to my family that no person should ever say. My thoughts were so overwhelming, I could not focus on school. I didn't feel safe in crowds. I felt like a cloud of gloom hung over me. Felt like I was letting my teammates down. I despised myself for who I had become. I had thoughts that everyone in my life would be much happier without me. I didn't want to get help because I didn't want to be a nuisance. When I was finally diagnosed with bipolar and autism, I felt relieved that my behavior was not the real me, but due to problems with my brain chemistry.
Thank you, Matthew. I had my first manic episode in August of 1999. I now have a language for what I was experiencing at the time, but then it was confusing and unexplainable. I went nights without sleeping. I felt compelled to write endlessly. I was irritable and agitated. My behavior became so erratic that I had to be hospitalized. My greatest challenge was trying to put together the pieces of my life when I was not in my right mind. I felt helpless and out of control. This became the beginning of a cycle of events that happened following each one of my pregnancies. My family would be present to pick up the pieces following my manic episodes, but we never discussed what was happening to me or why. I've never been ashamed of saying that I have bipolar 1 disorder, but I never shared my story until much later. I began sharing with others other than my family because mental illness was not talked about in my family or within the African American community. So at this time, I'd like to pose a question, whether you'd like to answer it, be rhetorical, but what have you ever had trouble accepting something in your life, and what was that like?
Um, just a little disclaimer. That this next session is about what has helped me. Some people might find it helpful to think about the principles versus the exact thing that has helped me, because everyone is different and we all have different backgrounds. So what's helped me is that I remembered my values. I remembered who I believed God to be and my identity as someone unconditionally loved for just existing. I forgave those who had wronged me, and I forgave myself for not being superhuman. I called my mom because she was always there for me, and we have a good relationship. I went to the hospital, got on the right meds, and started doing much better. Additional coping skills in my tool belt include seeing a therapist, reflecting, writing, drawing art, listening to music such as Petra, the Beatles, and the Irish Rovers, reading scripture and other inspirational quotes, and praying. All these help me sort through my emotions and process wounds so that my hurt feelings do not control me, but I stay aligned with reality. At night, I like to listen to audiobooks so that way my thought pattern is focused on an audiobook instead of ruminating thoughts that creep in at night as I'm trying to sleep. Other activities that help me not to isolate myself and spur me on to personal growth or spend time with friends and family, connecting with my pastors and church community. Using a stress ball helps me not become overwhelmed with my anxiety. Going on walks, going to the pool, and spending time with pets help clear my head when feeling tense or depressed.
I'm going to interject for just a moment, and I hope I don't throw you two off your script. But the question that you asked, Shelley, could you restate that question?
The first question that I asked was, have you ever had trouble accepting something in your life, and what was that like?
So if there's anyone, in our audience today that would like to address that question, respond to that question, you can do it in the chat, or you could feel free to come off mute and ask that question, and perhaps our speakers may be able to address that. We'll give you just a moment. And the second part, Shelley?
What was that like?
What was it like? Okay, very good. Thank you. I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity to share their thoughts at this point in the program. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so please continue, Shelley. Thank you.
Okay, what helps me? I became empowered by becoming informed. Acceptance of my mental illness was no big deal to me. I just needed to know what to do. At one point, I sat in an aisle of Borders bookstore with a set of twins in tow, researching what was happening to me. See, I received a diagnosis, but that didn't explain what I was experiencing. So for me, knowledge was power. I also relied on my faith. I developed a routine time of prayer and meditation that kept me spiritually grounded. I didn't know about NAMI or other organizations at that time, so I relied on my faith-based community. I also found that discussing my mental health challenges encouraged others to discuss theirs. I mention this because friends and family who had mental health stories became resources of natural support for me. I started to call it being in the trenches. Over the years, I have learned to be attentive to myself. For example, I function best with routine and I require sleep. Medication has been a part of my daily routine. I function best when I am well rested and have a planned day. This enables me to adapt as needed because of the consistency in my life. I didn't even have the language of recovery until 2017. I now realize that I have adapted by taking my life one moment at a time. And my greatest coping mechanism has been laughter. I have found something to laugh about in some of the toughest situations I faced. This has been crucial to my recovery. So I would ask you all, what are some of the things that have helped you through difficult times?
Feel free to come off mute and answer that question. What has helped you during difficult times? That's a really good question, and that's a good question whether you experience mental health issues or just life in general. I like that Shelley has identified those things that are really crucial for her. So she's identified the things that she needs and the things that help. I love that laughter and humor is a big part of your story because as serious as things are, we can't be too serious. Heidi added to the chat prayer, gratitude, and meditation. And I think both you, Shelley and Matthew, talk about meditation and the value that brings to you. Anyone else before we move on? Reaching out to friends and hiking, that's excellent. I think being out in nature is another common form of satisfaction that some of us experience just being out in nature and the beauty and the awe that comes with being in nature. All right, we'll continue on, Shelley.
Matthew, what next?
What's next? Yes. One of my artistic special interests growing up was the Bible. As a child and teenager, I would win awards at different Bible quizzing competitions. And while in college, despite having 2 hospitalizations, I graduated on time with honors and a degree in ministry, and I got 98% on my college senior comps in Bible. I was a youth worker at the same church for 8 years. I've been involved with a prayer ministry for 7 years. I'm a facilitator for both NAMI and Depression Bipolar Support Alliance peer support groups, and I give in our own voice presentations. I have accepted a new position at my local church as pastor of mental health and prayer support with the goal of helping people who are wrestling with their faith and mental health symptoms. And I want everyone to know how much value they have just because they exist. I hope that others will feel that I authentically value them.
Thanks, Matthew. Prior to discussing my what next, I think it's imperative to discuss my challenges. My recovery journey has not been easy. Remember, I advocate and educate because I did not know about the resources and supports that were available to me 25 years ago. A lot has changed since then, but a lot still needs to be improved upon. I must discuss hospitalizations. My mania led me to several hospitalizations over the years. I literally was hospitalized almost 1 year to date following each one of my pregnancies. I have been in most of the acute care mental health facilities in the Metro Kansas City area. After being sent to Osawatomie State Hospital, or OSH, I was determined to never have a hospitalization again. At times I was combative, at times I was withdrawn, but I always was back to myself with therapies and medication management. I embraced the process and did the hard work of recovery. I actually went 9 years without any manic episodes. I managed my life without medication and by making healthy life choices mentally, physically, emotionally, and socially until my last hospitalization. My last hospitalization was in 2017. It was my worst. I developed a physical condition that led me to being off work for months. Being unable to work as the head of the household and a single mom added to my stress. I had a severe manic episode. I was involuntarily admitted into OSH. I spent over a month in the hospital. I was combative with my family and with law enforcement. I was eventually terminated from my job due to my legal challenges. I have been involved with the justice system on many occasions, all because of my manic episodes. I have been on mental health diversion, and I have a misdemeanor on my record for disorderly conduct. At the time, law enforcement had little mental health training, so I was viewed as combative and uncooperative. Honestly, I believe in some occasions my race played a factor in my treatment by law enforcement. I became an anomaly because once I was in recovery, it was apparent that I was a law-abiding citizen with a good reputation in my community. Thank goodness now there are co-responders in local police departments, there are crisis intervention teams or CIT, there are mental health courts, and in many other programs and resources for individuals in mental health crises. All this being said, here is my what's next. Now, I spend this season of my life encouraging others that they can live wonderful, well-rounded lives in recovery. I hope to inspire people by sharing my journey. Since 1999, I learned to advocate for and to educate myself. I have been fortunate to extend my knowledge and passion to include my husband, my children, my family, and my friends. Now, I'm committed to getting further involved in my community. I've had the opportunity to share my story in a variety of settings over the years. I'm currently serving on the board of directors of NAMI Johnson County, and I'm honored to present in our own voice presentations because I want people to know that there is hope and there is support readily available. I want to play an active role in stopping the stigma of mental illness. So I would leave you with one additional question. What is hopeful about the future for you?
Anyone's free to answer that question. I'll give you a moment.
Shelley, Matthew, and Sharon, I just appreciate this so much. I think it's so important that people talk about this and share their stories so they know they're not alone. I think a lot of people are alone and not having these conversations. And what you all are doing today provides me hope. And the work y'all do with NAMI too provides hope because it gets people having important conversations so they know that they're not alone and there's resources and hope. I think what y'all do is very hopeful.
Matthew, did you have anything further to add?
Just that it should be like mental illness is something that you're either born with or it happens to you. You don't choose it, and so there should be no shame. Like we wouldn't shame someone with any other disease or symptoms, disabilities. So.
Shelley, I love that powerful question that you posed. And I'm just going to tag on really quickly to a comment that you made. One of the things that you've identified with yourself is that you need a schedule. You need a routine. You need to be well rested. And that is something that my daughter has learned. So we have, okay, if I have 5 daughters, so you put husbands and nieces and nephews in there, we're a big group. And there are times if we're having a family gathering, she'll say, I'm going to have to take a nap before I go, or a sporting event. I'm going to have to rest. And there are times when we're in our family gathering situation and she'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to go home. She gets overwhelmed, but rather than have a meltdown that we have experienced in the past, she feels it. She understands what she needs to do. And she'll say, I think I'm going to leave now. So she almost always drives separately so that she can leave if she needs to. And that schedule, you really can't throw a last minute thing on her plate because she'll probably say no, because it's just too much. She lives within a pretty defined schedule, and she might make some exceptions to her schedule, but we can't put that upon her and say, hey, we thought we would go see a movie tonight. You want to go? Would probably be a hard no for her. Wow. So that's part of what allows you to be so successful in your recovery, because you've identified these things.
It's taking time, honestly, Sharon. I mean, one of the things, raising, it was challenging being a single mom of 4 children, and 3 of my 4 children have mental health challenges. So I had to balance my life. I had to balance their lives and be advocates for both myself and for them. We got a language when I would, at one point raising 4 children, I literally had 4 jobs. And I would tell them, and they knew the language, Mom has hit the wall. And when I did that, I knew that they knew, and I knew I needed to go rest. And so that is part of my story. And so it's crucial for me. And I do, like I said, I don't get so much anxious or challenged. It's just I know I'll get overly excited and forget to sleep. And so that's kind of the journey that I had to go through, because sleep is imperative for me. If I don't sleep, I actually even take at this point in my life a sleeping med so that I get enough sleep and I don't become manic.
Yeah, meds are very important. I'm going to add one other thing here. Personal story is I have a family member who has lived with medicine-resistant depression for many years. He was diagnosed with mental health issues when he was 7 years old, and now he's in his mid-40s, closer to 50. And his view on mental illness is so much different. Like for my daughter, for example, she's very free and open talking about her mental health conditions. He is very guarded, very careful in who might know, because the time where he grew up and in a smaller community, it was not accepting. He would not have been accepted. He would have, been kind of ostracized in that community. So I really love opportunities like this where we can bring up these stories and talk about the hope and recovery that occurs when people can share experiences, share, what's worked for them, like what both Matthew and Shelley are doing today. Because imagine if you were living in this silo by yourself, maybe not even sure, maybe you don't have a diagnosis, you don't know where to go. Well, with NAMI, there is a place to go and to share your story, so we can move away from the stigma that is still there, but it is better than it used to be. So that is something to be thankful for. And another thing I'd like to mention, because sometimes things happen in our family or, in our friends group, where an individual has a mental health meltdown or crisis. They get a hold of their doctor. They need to get in to see a therapist. The wait is 3 to 6 months long. Well, that is unfortunately how it works in our, with insurance and providers and the limits that they have just on their caseloads. NAMI is a great resource to build that bridge for the time that you have a diagnosis or something has happened until you can get into therapy. It's not a solve all, but there are avenues there with support groups and things like that can at least help you feel not that you're not alone. Others that are on that journey that can provide some emotional support and share their experiences with you to help make things a little easier on you until you can get into see a therapist. Or for the family members, as Shelley was saying, she had to take care of her own condition plus just raising children, and then raising children that have mental health conditions. Raising children with mental health conditions is a whole new ballgame, and they're young and hormones come into play, and there's just so much that goes along with that. So, our family support group is important. We have the family to family class, which is important, which is the class I took for my daughter, because I couldn't have a single conversation with her that didn't end in probably both of us screaming and walking away and thinking, what happened? What should I have said? What didn't I say? So it helped me learn. I couldn't change her, but I could change how I interacted with her. I learned to be more patient, to listen better, to step away, and for her, encouragement is a big thing, and to recognize when I need a break. So now I know those things about her. I can have a phone conversation and know things aren't going well. And she has prompted me to say, I'm not asking for you to fix anything or for your advice. I just need you to let me vent. And so we came up with that communication to say, I'm having a bad day. I just need to dump it all out. I don't need your help, because as a mom, I tend to be a fixer. How can I fix it? And then I said, I could do that. And then the first time we had a conversation, she said, well, you already broke the rule. You're already trying to fix my problem. And I said, oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. But learning how to navigate with her, because I just, loved my kid. I wanted to help my kid. It was heartbreaking. So there are programs out there. That's, I guess, long and short. We have our community health programs, Johnson County Mental Health. For those of us that live in Johnson County, has some great programs. Shelley mentioned most police officers in this area are crisis intervention trained officers. So if they're called, they are going to come with a different approach than a police officer, coming to a burglary or something. They are going to look at the situation and evaluate, is this person having a mental health issue? We have a co-responder from the mental health, the community, that's going to help navigate this and say, I think this person would be better suited if we could get them into a hospital versus jail. because jail doesn't help people with mental illness. And now we're getting better. We're getting better where we can separate mental health challenges with criminal activity.
Mhm.
The sad thing is there are very few beds in our area for someone that's having a mental health crisis. So there's not very many beds in our area. RSI is a facility that shares between Johnson County and Wyandotte County, 10 beds. 10 beds to care for people in the sizes of Wyandotte and Johnson County. So if you can't get into a place like that, you can't get into a hospital. Well, if things present themselves in a certain way, jail is probably the next option. And we know that that's not helpful for our friends and loved ones that live with mental illness. So just pointing that out as well, the value of that. I know that Tanner had explained about the survey that you all need for your CEUs. I've also placed a link in the chat for the survey for this presentation. If you have found it to be of value, we'd like for you to take just a few minutes to take that survey. And I want to make sure yeah, there it is. And I think we have just a little bit of time if any of you have questions for Shelley or Matthew.
Attendees, please feel free to type your questions in the chat. We're so lucky to have Shelley, Sharon, and Matthew here sharing their stories, or if any of you have a personal story that you would like to share, we can certainly all, help one another and learn from one another as well. So we would love to hear from all of you.
Just wanted to provide a quick comment. I heard one of you mentioned the importance of humor and laughter. And just last month, I had a chance to attend a presentation, and the entire presentation was basically on, the importance of laughter and humor and finding ways to find the light side of moments and so forth. And I know for me personally, I know we're all different with this, but for me, I learned a long time ago that humor and laughter was a great remedy for me whenever I was stressed, anxious, depressed, whatever it may be. Just a funny movie, a funny TV show, just something that could I know for a fact, this will make me laugh. This will make me have a smile on my face right now. So I even found out just a couple of years ago, the creator of the show Schitt's Creek, Eugene Levy, for those of you who watched that show, he said that show basically was at the height of its popularity throughout COVID. And Eugene Levy said he gets emails and people on the street every day saying, your show was helpful for me throughout COVID. It was a 30-minute fun show just to watch, made me laugh, made me smile. It provided a great distraction. So I think there's a lot of power in humor and laughter, and the more we can find ways to access those things, the best.
Tanner, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that is what got me through many dark days. And I could, I'm grateful that I do have a sense of humor. I'm grateful that I could rely on humor to get me through those moments. And even as challenging things were, I could laugh at myself, and that was very beneficial and still is very beneficial to me.
And, there's so many easy ways that we could incorporate, or we can incorporate humor. I have a couple of friends that they'll begin a meeting with a dad joke. Okay, so I asked them to tell me a dad joke, and they're so silly. But us moms have good jokes too. But there's just I think laughter is good. I think that's something really important. And I'll try to find the link, but there's this video of this baby laughing. I guess the dad had a bad day. He'd gotten another rejection letter from not getting a job. And he's like tearing it up, and the baby is cracking up. I mean, that video I almost start crying because it is so funny. So, like, if you ever need to cry, to laugh, there's this concept called laughter yoga. And if you Google some of those videos, you'll end up laughing because it's just so silly. but watching babies laugh and just having people laugh, it's really, it's just good. It's therapeutic. So yes, I am grateful that you shared the piece about laughter, because I know that's something that I need to do more. I need to lighten up. My teenagers would tell you that. Lighten up, mom.
And I think humor as well. I mean, even as it relates to just how we do our jobs each day, and even through leadership, our roles and our professions, it's just using humor. Sometimes a good joke can just kind of take the edge off just a little bit. I love sports, huge sports fan. I've heard so many stories over the years and how professional athletes and Super Bowls and World Series games and NBA Finals games, a famous player has used humor or just a fun joke just to kind of lower the anxiety a little bit. And they'll say, wow, that helped. That kind of helped take the pressure down just a little bit, that allowed some more focus, that made all the difference in the world.
Mhm. I just want to
I
add on to that as
also,
well. Oh, I'm sorry, Matthew. I was just going to add is that not only have I been able to use that for myself and my recovery, but it's an avenue that can start the dialogue. And it is crucial that we have the dialogue. There are so many people who feel alone. As I mentioned, I am a suicide survivor. My brother was fighting hard to hang in there, and it became a little too much for him, and he made that choice. And I say that because after having that experience with him, I said I never wanted anyone to feel that place of hopelessness or helplessness. So if you can get in and start a dialogue and talk about mental illness, there's power in that, and there is freedom, and there is hope that comes from having those dialogues.
Absolutely. Matthew.
something that I had to learn to do in college, and am still working on, throughout my adult life, was laughing at myself when I'm stressed and not taking myself too seriously. Because if I do that, then I'm not going to forgive myself. I get mad at people because I'm so mad at myself, and feeding into that and being able to just laugh and see human situations that are kind of humorous that we could find more annoying is important to I find is important to let tension break.
Absolutely. Because it doesn't take much, I think, for what you're describing, Matthew, is if you've learned that you need to turn things around quickly with humor and laughter, because if you don't, it could take you down a spiral or a path that it's more difficult to recover from. So I love when I hear your stories, because it's how you have to learn to navigate this life. And to be successful. You're both very successful in your lives despite having mental illness, and that's just really encouraging. I heard someone who was sharing their story make this comment: I tell my story so I don't forget where I've been. And I hear that woven through your stories. You love sharing your story. It helps you to see the growth that you've experienced. You acknowledge those dark times, but how you've been able to, pull yourself up. You've identified what's important. Each of you have different things that you go to help you through these times. And so that comment really spoke to me. Is I tell my story so I don't forget where I've been. I just think that's so powerful. Anything else, Shelley or Matthew, you'd like to share before we move on?
I kind of want to just piggyback on the statements you just made. I mean, for me, it has been having NAMI and being exposed to organizations that are providing resources to community is so important. I went through and did not know what to do. And not only that, not only that, but I had a family and a community. When I speak, stigma is everywhere. it is intensified many times in marginalized communities where you don't talk about mental illness. And so at this season and this juncture in 2024, where we can have these opportunities to share our stories, it helps. And so I don't forget where I've come from, and I really do build that from that foundation, want to give voice to understanding mental illness and seeing, there's not only a stigma of mental illness, there's also stereotypes of how you think people look with mental illness, or the perceptions that you have. And so oftentimes, as I share my story, people will say, well, and it's sometimes a little disheartening. We think, okay, you have to look a certain way or be a certain way, and say, no, we're successful. We have, whether it be careers, we have wonderful lives, we just happen to have mental illness. And so that is definitely one of the reasons I put myself up. I'll even say the poster child, particularly in the African-American community, where people don't want to talk about, we're getting better, but don't want to talk about these deep conversations on mental illness.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I want to give a little plug for both the health system and NAMI. So tomorrow we're having our annual NAMI walks. The Johnson County Walk is tomorrow at Sarco Park. I love, it's so hard to say. Sarco Park Trails Park. That's a tongue twister for me. It's tomorrow at 10 a.m. The health system is a sponsor of the walk. We're so grateful for your sponsorship. I look forward to seeing you there tomorrow, Heidi, and probably some others on the call. So we'd love to have you come out and join us. It's a beautiful park. There'll be resources there, opportunities to look at the vendor tables. I'm saying vendor, but really they're resource tables. So, if maybe OCD is something that you or a loved one or friend may have, there might be a table there with OCD resources. Or if yours is more depression or anxiety driven, there'll be resources there, but a lot of fun things to do too. So again, thank you to the health system for your support. Thank you for having us here today. We always look for opportunities to bring what we offer to the community and to share stories like Matthew and Shelley did today. We appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate all of you so much, and I certainly look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. Rain has been removed from the forecast temporarily, so we'll see.
Yep.
But thank you so much. This was fabulous and certainly inspiring. And I hope all of you have enjoyed learning this month about mental health and are doing the things that you need to do to take care of your mental health. There's that saying that mental health is health. And so it is important that we do all the things to take care of ourselves and take care of one another. So thank you all so very much. And I hope everyone has a beautiful day.
Thank you all.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Bye.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow in person.
Yeah,
All
see you
right.
tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.